The courtroom was buzzing with tension that morning. People shuffled into the wooden benches, whispering quietly, sneaking glances at the family seated at the front. The Johnsons, Maya, Robert, and their son Marcus, sat stiffly, their hands tightly clasped together. They were dressed neatly, Maya in a simple navy dress, Robert in a worn but clean suit, and Marcus in his best shirt and tie, nervously fidgeting with the buttons. Across the room, Judge Henry Wallace leaned back in his chair, reviewing the file in front of him. His face was hard to read, but there was something cold and distant about him. Wallace had a reputation in town, strict, old school, and, though few dared to say it out loud, not exactly fair when it came to families like the Johnsons. As the bailiff called the court to order, Wallace banged his gavel sharply. "Let's get this over with," he muttered under his breath, but loud enough that the Johnsons could hear. Maya squeezed Robert's hand, feeling a pit form in her stomach. The case was supposed to be simple. A dispute over a minor housing violation, easily settled with a fine or community service. But from the moment they walked into that courtroom, Maya felt like something else was going on. Something uglier. The opposing lawyer stood up, clearing his throat. "Your Honor, we're here today to determine the fitness of the Johnson family to remain in their residence, given the multiple complaints filed against them." "Complaints?" Robert whispered, turning to Maya. "What complaints?" She shook her head. They had received no notices, no warnings. Nothing. Judge Wallace nodded, tapping his pen impatiently. "Proceed." The lawyer pulled out a stack of papers. "Noise complaints. Loitering. Property neglect." "That's not true." Maya stood up without thinking, her voice breaking. "We keep our home clean. We work 2 jobs each to stay afloat." Wallace's gavel slammed down again. "Sit down, Mrs. Johnson. You'll have your turn." Maya sat, her heart pounding. She could feel the eyes of the courtroom on her, a mix of pity and judgment. The lawyer continued, embellishing minor neighborhood gossip into official-sounding grievances. Maya clenched her fists in her lap. None of it was real. None of it. When it was finally their turn to speak, Robert rose. His voice was calm, but firm. "Your Honor, we've lived in that house for 10 years. We've never had a problem with anyone. We take care of our property. We mind our own business." Wallace barely looked up. "Be that as it may, the number of complaints is concerning." "But they're lies," Marcus said suddenly, standing up next to his father. He was just 16, but his voice was clear and strong. "They don't want us there because we're black." The courtroom froze. Wallace's face darkened. "Young man, you will not bring race into this courtroom." "But that's what this is about, isn't it?" Marcus pressed. "You're looking for any excuse to kick us out." Wallace's hand gripped the gavel tightly, his knuckles whitening. "One more word, and I will hold you in contempt." Maya pulled Marcus down into his seat, her heart breaking. She had taught him to be proud of who he was, but also to be careful. She saw now how quickly things could turn against them. The judge leaned forward. "It is my decision that the Johnson family must vacate their home within 30 days. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Robert's mouth fell open. "You can't. There's no evidence, no proof." "My ruling is final," Wallace said coldly. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. Their home, the place where they had built their lives, raised their son, survived so many struggles, gone, just like that. Marcus looked around the room. Most people had already turned away, murmuring amongst themselves, unwilling to meet the Johnsons' eyes. Only a few faces showed sympathy. Most looked relieved. Business as usual. But then, from the back of the courtroom, a voice rang out. "Objection, Your Honor." Everyone turned. A young man in a simple gray suit was standing up, a folder in his hand. He looked barely older than Marcus. No one recognized him, certainly not Wallace. "And who are you?" Wallace barked. The young man stepped forward confidently. "My name is Tyler Jameson. I'm a licensed attorney. I've been observing today's proceedings, and I intend to represent the Johnson family effective immediately." Wallace's eyes narrowed. "You can't just walk into my courtroom and "Yes, I can," Tyler said smoothly. "Under the 6th Amendment, the Johnsons have the right to effective counsel. And judging by how this case has been mishandled, they need it." The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Maya clutched Robert's hand. Could this be real? Wallace banged his gavel again. "This is highly irregular." "What's irregular," Tyler said, stepping fully into the center of the room, "is how this entire case has been conducted. No notice to the family. No real evidence presented. And most importantly, no regard for their constitutional rights." Wallace sputtered, clearly flustered. "I will not have my authority questioned. And I will not have my clients railroaded," Tyler replied calmly. Marcus leaned over to Maya. "Who is this guy?" he whispered. Maya shook her head. "I don't know. But thank God he's here." Tyler opened his folder. "Your Honor, I have here a petition for immediate injunction. I'm filing it now. And I have affidavits from neighbors refuting these so-called complaints. Actual neighbors, not anonymous claims." Wallace's face went red. He shuffled papers on his bench, trying to regain control. Tyler smiled politely. "Shall we proceed?" The courtroom was electric now. Phones were coming out. People were whispering furiously. This wasn't how things usually went in Judge Wallace's courtroom. And everyone could feel it. For once, the script was changing. Tyler approached the bench with steady, confident steps. His voice, though respectful, held an unmistakable edge. "Your Honor, with your permission, I'd like to call my first witness." Wallace glared at him, but the murmuring of the courtroom pressured him into nodding stiffly. "Proceed," he grunted. Tyler turned and gestured to the back of the room. A middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a floral dress stood up nervously. She walked to the front and took the stand. "Please state your name for the record," Tyler said. "Patricia Holman," she answered, her voice shaking slightly. "And how long have you lived near the Johnson family?" "About 8 years," she said. Tyler smiled reassuringly. "During that time, have you ever filed a complaint against them?" Patricia shook her head firmly. "Never. They're some of the best neighbors anyone could ask for. Always respectful. Always kind." Tyler nodded. "And are you aware of any neighbors who have had problems with the Johnsons?" She hesitated, glancing at Judge Wallace before answering. "No. Honestly, we all think very highly of them. Any complaints, they must have come from someone with a different agenda." The courtroom buzzed again. Wallace banged his gavel sharply. "Order." Tyler thanked Patricia and turned back to Wallace. "Your Honor, I have signed statements from 10 neighbors, all saying the same thing. The Johnsons have never been a problem." Wallace's jaw clenched, but he didn't interrupt. Tyler continued. "Furthermore, I did some digging. The so-called anonymous complaints? They all originated from the same IP address, an address registered to a man named Douglas Wheeler." He flipped a document onto the evidence table. "And who is Mr. Wheeler?" Tyler asked aloud, pacing slowly. "Oh, just the owner of the real estate development company trying to buy up homes in the Johnsons' neighborhood for a new shopping center." Maya gasped softly, clutching Robert's arm. Robert stared straight ahead, his fist clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. Tyler's voice sharpened. "So let's review. The Johnsons are being forced out of their home based on fabricated complaints from a man who stands to make a fortune if they leave." Wallace shifted in his seat, visibly sweating now. "And it gets better," Tyler said, holding up another paper. "Judge Wallace, you failed to disclose your financial ties to Mr. Wheeler. According to public records, you and Mr. Wheeler are co-investors in a private property firm." The room exploded in gasps. Even the stenographer's fingers froze above her keys for a second. Wallace's face turned an ugly shade of red. "That's enough," he barked. "You're out of line, counselor." Tyler didn't flinch. "Am I?" he said quietly. "Or have I simply exposed the truth?" The officers standing by the doors shifted uneasily, exchanging glances. They knew something big was happening. Wallace slammed his gavel again. "This court is adjourned," he shouted. But it was too late. Someone in the audience stood up, a man in a dark suit with a badge clipped to his belt. "Not so fast, Judge Wallace." The entire room turned. "Who are you?" Wallace snapped. The man walked forward slowly. "Special Agent Carter, Department of Justice. We've been investigating corruption allegations tied to real estate fraud. Seems like today we just got the evidence we needed." Wallace's mouth opened, then closed again like a fish gasping for air. Agent Carter turned to Tyler. "Mr. Jameson, we'll take it from here." Tyler nodded, stepping back respectfully. The agent approached Wallace, pulling a folded document from his jacket. "Henry Wallace, you are under investigation for conspiracy, fraud, and violation of the public trust." The courtroom was silent except for the squeak of Wallace's chair as he slumped back into it. Marcus looked at his parents, his face alight with something they hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. Tyler turned to the Johnsons and spoke quietly. "It's not over yet, but you're going to get your home back. And your name's cleared." Maya's eyes filled with tears. Robert grasped Tyler's hand, shaking it firmly. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. Tyler smiled warmly. "You don't have to thank me. You deserve justice. I just helped uncover the truth." Around the room, people began clapping softly at first, then louder. The sound echoed off the courtroom walls, filling the space with something it had been missing for a long time: righteousness. Wallace sat frozen, his head hanging in shame as the agents moved toward him. Maya leaned down and hugged Marcus tightly. "You see, baby," she whispered. "Sometimes, when you stand up, when you tell the truth, it changes everything." Marcus nodded against her shoulder, feeling the strength of her arms around him. "I believe it, Mama. I really do." The bailiff motioned for the courtroom to clear, but no one moved right away. It was like they wanted to absorb the moment, let it settle into their bones. Justice. Truth. Finally, as the Johnsons filed out, surrounded by supporters, Tyler lingered for a moment. He looked back at the judge's bench, empty now, tainted by betrayal. Then he turned and followed the family into the fresh afternoon air, ready to help them start the next chapter of their lives. Outside the courthouse, the sun shone bright and warm, a perfect contrast to the darkness they had left behind. Marcus lifted his face to the sky and smiled. For the first time in a long time, the future felt possible. The courthouse steps were crowded. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, microphones shoved into faces as the Johnson family emerged. Maya instinctively shielded Marcus with her arm, but the boy stood tall, his head held high. Tyler stayed close, acting as a buffer between them and the press. "Ms. Johnson, Mr. Johnson, how do you feel about today's verdict?" shouted a reporter from Channel 8 News. Maya hesitated, overwhelmed, but Robert cleared his throat and spoke. "We just want to thank everyone who believed in us. Justice matters. Truth matters." The cameras clicked frantically, capturing every word. Marcus tugged at Tyler's sleeve. "Are we really going to be okay now?" Tyler crouched down to the boy's eye level. "You're going to be more than okay, Marcus. You're going to thrive." Maya smiled, tears still shining in her eyes. She looked at Tyler as if seeing him not just as a lawyer, but as family now. They made their way through the crowd, helped by a few kind strangers who linked arms to create a path. It was chaotic, noisy, and overwhelming. But for the first time, the Johnsons weren't facing it alone. Later that evening, back at the Johnsons' home, the one they had nearly lost, the atmosphere was completely different. The front porch light was on, neighbors dropped by with pies, casseroles, and hugs. People they hadn't spoken to much before were suddenly showing up, shaking Robert's hand and patting Maya on the back. "About time someone stood up to the system," one older man said gruffly, handing over a warm dish covered in foil. "And it took a kid like you to do it," he added, winking at Marcus. Inside the cozy living room, Marcus sat cross-legged on the floor, his homework spread out around him. He was trying to focus, but his mind kept replaying everything that had happened. Maya sat nearby, sorting through a mountain of paperwork the courts had returned to them, proof that their house was safe again, that the false complaints had been erased. Tyler leaned against the doorframe, watching them with a soft smile. "You know," he said casually, "I had a lot of offers after law school. Big firms, six-figure salaries. But I turned them down." Robert looked up, curious. "Why is that?" Tyler shrugged. "Because of families like yours. Because when I was a kid, my mom fought like hell to keep our home. We almost lost it too." Maya paused, her hand on a stack of legal papers. "What happened?" Tyler's smile was bittersweet. "Someone believed in us. Some random lawyer who didn't even know our names showed up and fought for us. Saved everything we had." He crossed his arms, looking thoughtful. "I figured, if someone could do that for us, maybe I could spend my life doing it for other people." Maya blinked hard, her throat tight with emotion. "Well," she said after a moment, "I hope you know you did more than just save a house today." Tyler's smile widened. "I know, and I'd do it all over again." The room fell into a comfortable silence, broken only by the scratching of Marcus's pencil on his math worksheet. Suddenly, Robert chuckled, looking around at their well-worn but beloved home. "You know what?" he said, raising his voice a little. "This house has seen a lot. Laughter, tears, dreams, setbacks. But now," he looked at his wife and son, "now it's seen a miracle." Marcus grinned and jumped up. "And it's going to see a whole lot more. Like when I become an engineer." Everyone laughed, the tension finally breaking. For the first time in months, their home felt truly alive again. Later that night, after most of the neighbors had gone and the dishes were piled high in the sink, Maya sat alone on the front steps. The cool night air wrapped around her like a soft blanket. She stared up at the stars, feeling small but somehow strong at the same time. Tyler stepped out onto the porch and joined her, handing her a mug of steaming tea. "You did good today," he said. Maya shook her head. "We couldn't have done anything without you." Tyler sipped his coffee. Maybe. But you fought. You held your ground. You didn't let them scare you. She hugged the mug close to her chest. I was scared, she admitted. Every minute of it. Tyler nodded. That's what makes it brave. They sat in silence for a moment, watching as Marcus chased fireflies in the yard, his laughter floating up into the night. You know, Tyler said, the best part isn't winning cases. It's seeing this, seeing a kid get his future back. Maya smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. You're part of that future too, you know, she said quietly. Whether you like it or not. Tyler chuckled. I'll take that. As they watched Marcus run, free and fearless, Maya thought about all the nights she'd stayed up worrying, all the times she'd prayed for a miracle. And now, somehow, against all odds, they'd made it through. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the night wash over her. Maybe the world wasn't perfect. Maybe there were still battles ahead. But tonight, in this small corner of it, justice had won. And that was enough. The next morning, the Johnsons' kitchen smelled like pancakes and coffee. Maya stood by the stove flipping pancakes with a practiced hand, humming softly under her breath. Robert sat at the table, newspaper spread out in front of him, although he wasn't really reading it. Marcus sat in his usual spot, doodling spaceships and robots in the margins of his homework. Tyler walked in, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Smells like heaven, he said, grinning. Maya laughed. Sit down. You earned it. He didn't argue. As he slid into a chair, Marcus looked up at him with a mischievous grin. You're gonna need energy, Marcus said. You're famous now. Tyler chuckled. Famous, huh? Don't tell me I'm on TikTok already. Marcus nodded eagerly. A bunch of people posted videos from the courthouse. You're trending. Tyler groaned, dropping his head into his hands. That's it. My career's over. Maya laughed, setting a plate in front of him. You'll survive. Besides, people are seeing what kind of lawyer you are. The kind that actually fights for people. Robert folded the newspaper and set it aside. You're welcome to stick around, you know. Have breakfast with us anytime. Tyler smiled, genuinely touched. Thanks. But I have a feeling you guys are going to be just fine. They ate together, the clatter of silverware and easy conversation filling the kitchen. It felt normal. It felt like home. After breakfast, Tyler stood in the driveway, preparing to leave. His duffel bag slung over his shoulder, his car parked at the curb. Marcus ran out after him, clutching a sheet of paper. Wait. Tyler turned, curious. I drew you something, Marcus said, thrusting the paper into his hands. Tyler unfolded it carefully. It was a sketch, himself, wearing a superhero cape, standing in front of the courthouse, a big smile on his face. Across the top, in crooked handwriting, it said, My hero. Tyler blinked rapidly, the lump in his throat making it hard to speak. Thanks, buddy, he said, ruffling Marcus's hair. Come visit us again. Marcus called as Tyler opened his car door. You can count on it, Tyler promised. As he pulled away from the curb, Tyler glanced in the rearview mirror. The Johnsons stood waving in the driveway, a snapshot of something real and good and worth fighting for. He drove in silence for a while, the city rolling past in a blur. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat, more missed calls, more media requests. But for now, he ignored them all. His mind wasn't on fame or interviews. It was on the next family who might need someone in their corner. The next battle that needed fighting. He thought about the courtroom, about Judge Holloway, about how easy it would have been to let injustice slip by, to pretend it wasn't happening. But that wasn't who he was. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. He grinned to himself. A genius attorney in disguise, huh? Maybe there was something to that after all. Meanwhile, back at the Johnson house, life resumed. Maya sorted through a pile of mail, tossing junk letters into the recycling. Among them was an envelope she didn't recognize, no return address, just her name written neatly across the front. Frowning, she opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. Never doubt your worth again. Stay strong. A friend. And tucked inside was a gift card to a local bookstore, enough to buy Marcus a stack of books he'd been dreaming about. Maya clutched the card to her chest, overwhelmed again by the kindness of strangers and the unexpected ways hope showed up. That afternoon, she and Robert sat down with Marcus to talk about the future. They talked about dreams, college, career paths, all the things that had once felt impossible. You can be anything you want, Robert said, ruffling Marcus's hair. Anything? Marcus asked, his eyes wide. Anything, Maya confirmed, smiling. I want to be an engineer, Marcus said proudly. Or maybe a pilot. Or maybe both. They laughed, but there was no doubt in their minds that he could do whatever he set his mind to. Later, Marcus sat by his bedroom window, sketching rockets and planes, dreaming big dreams. Downstairs, Maya and Robert cuddled on the couch, the news playing quietly in the background. One story caught their attention, a special segment about systemic bias in the court system, sparked by the Johnsons' case. There were interviews with other families, clips of peaceful protests, promises from local officials to review procedures and ensure fairness. It wasn't everything. It wasn't a full fix. But it was a start. And it had started because one kid had shouted the truth when no one else would. The days turned into weeks, and the Johnsons settled back into a new, better rhythm. The fear that had hung over their home like a storm cloud slowly lifted. It didn't mean the world was suddenly perfect. But now, they knew they had the strength and the community to stand up when it mattered. And somewhere out there, Tyler was already working on his next case, ready to do it all over again for another family. Because that's how change happens. One brave voice at a time. One stand at a time. One fight at a time. The world didn't always reward kindness or courage immediately. But sometimes, just sometimes, it did. And when it did, it reminded everyone watching that hope isn't something you find. Hope is something you build.